This conference will now be recorded.
The council meeting of June 27th, 2023 will now please come to order at 6:48 p.m. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Broussard,
Present.
Ms. Gilchrist,
Here.
Mr. Glassburn,
Here.
Ms. Heeman, Ms. Heeman, I didn't hear you. Is your Mr. Madden,
Here.
Mr. Scarl,
Present.
Ms. Williamson?
Here.
Thank you. Before we move into legislation, I would just like to ask on behalf of the mayor, on behalf of the administration, on behalf of myself, and on behalf of all city council, I would ask that we observe a moment of silence for Susan Peterson. Thank you so much. We will now move into legislation.
Legislation on third reading, ordinance 2023-68, introduced by Mayor Jones, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the construction and maintenance of new custom decorative fencing and branding of same on the bridge carrying Great Northern Boulevard over Interstate Route 480.
Mr. President, I'd like
Councilman.
to move to adopt ordinance 2023-68 and ask for a second.
I second the motion.
Motion to adopt ordinance 2023-68 made by Councilman Madden and seconded by Councilman Glassburn. Roll call, please.
Mr. Madden,
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist,
Yes.
Mr. Scarl,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Ordinance 2023-68 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
Resolution 2023-73, introduced by Mayor Jones, a resolution authorizing the Director of Economic and Community Development to advertise for bids to award a contract for the Brook Park Road Underpass Improvement Project, Phase 1, as detailed in the specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval of the Board of Control, to enter into a contract with the lowest and best bidder.
Mr. President, I move to adopt resolution 2023-73 and ask for a second.
I second the motion.
Motion to adopt resolution 2023-73 made by Councilman Madden, seconded by Councilman Glassburn. Roll call, please.
Mr. Madden,
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn,
Yes.
Ms. Williamson,
Yes.
Mr. Scarl,
Yes.
Mr. Limpert,
Yes.
Ms. Heeman,
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist,
Yes.
Resolution 2023-73 is adopted by a vote of 7-0.
legislation on first reading, Resolution 2023-85, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a 5-year contract with Agile Network for the installation and activation of 2 service connections to enable radio communication between the North Olmsted Dispatch Center and the Marks Radio Network operated by the state of Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. President, I introduce, place on first reading, and request suspension of the rule requiring 3 readings and formal committee review.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Heeman.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings because this is on a deadline and in the interest of our city to move the bridge and those items forward. And ask for a second. Or, I'm sorry, the Brook
Second.
Park. Yes, my apologies.
I apologize. I didn't. Who has the second?
Williamson.
Thank you. All right. Motion to suspend the rules requiring 3 readings and formal committee review for Resolution 2023-85 made by Councilwoman Heeman, seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Ms. Heeman? Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Mr. Limpert? Mr. Limpert? I can't hear
Yes.
you. It's fine. Okay, good. Thanks.
All right. That motion passes by a vote of 7-0. If there is anyone in the virtual audience who wishes to address council regarding Resolution 2023-85, please speak up now to be recognized by the clerk.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Heeman.
thank you. Hearing none and seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to adopt 2023-85 and ask for a second.
Second.
Motion to adopt Resolution 2023-85 made by Councilwoman Heeman, seconded by Councilwoman Williamson. Roll call, please.
Ms. Heeman?
Yes.
Ms. Williamson?
Yes.
Mr. Scarl?
Yes.
Ms. Gilchrist?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Glassburn?
Yes.
Mr. Limpert?
Yes.
Resolution
Yes.
2023-85 is adopted by a vote of 7-0. And I believe that completes our agenda. With the agenda being completed and there being no further business to come before council, this special council meeting of June 27, 2023 is adjourned at 6:56 p.m.
Ms. Williamson?
Okay. Yes, I would like to begin the Public Safety, Health, and Welfare Committee this evening at 7:56 p.m. Present. Oh, my apologies. My computer just went out screen. Present in no particular order. The mayor, our Human Resources Director, Councilman Madden, Limpert, Gilchrist, Glassburn, Scarl, Council President Broussard, our Recreation Director, Public Director, our Law Director, Special Assistant Mayor, our Finance Director, Economic Development Director, and guests. On the agenda this evening is a liquor permit number 4150215 for Isnig LLC, doing business as Breton Beverage, located at 29603 Lorraine Road. After review by the police department and seeing no objection by them, I will make a motion to not object to this liquor permit number 4150215 and ask for a second.
Second.
seconded by Councilman Madden. All in favor, say aye.
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 Motion to not object passes with a vote of 3-0, and that concludes the meeting at 6:58 PM. Thank you.
Hey, B, just a mic check really quick before I start the meeting. Can you hear me now? Okay. I will start the Building Zone and Development Committee meeting at 6:58 PM on July 27th, 2023. This is a virtual meeting, and on present are committee members Heeman, Limpert, Williamson, council members Broussard, Gilchrist, Glassburn, Madden, Carl, the mayor, law director, finance director, HR director, economic development director, safety director, service director, recreation director, and is the special assistant here? Didn't see him. He is, okay, special assistant to the mayor. First on the agenda is ordinance 2023-77 to amend 1361.03A. And I would ask that, who's going to talk about this, Madam Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, we have our city engineer, Mr. Flolarski, on the line here.
Great. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to introduce this a little bit and tee it up for our city engineer. The new agreement that we have in place with Green Valley Engineering actually transfers administration of the city's floodplain program over to the city engineer's office from the building commissioner. And this legislation is kind of the accompanying piece that reflects that. And so any questions relative to that, or if our city engineer has anything to add, we're certainly here to answer any questions.
Yeah, just a question. So we don't have any issues of this not being transferred over from since he's come on board, do we? Or is this like retroactive, or there hasn't been anything we've had to worry about before we pass this over?
If I could speak, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First off, nice to see everybody for the first time, or some of you for the first time. There's no issues retroactively here. We've been helping the building department out since January doing this, but this just formalizes my role in performing these duties.
Any other questions from committee? Questions from council? Okay, at this time, I'd like to make a motion. Was that somebody
Mr.
have a
Chair.
comment?
Okay. Oh, never mind.
Go ahead.
Ms. Newman was raising her hand, but she said never mind.
Okay. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to recommend ordinance number 2023-77, ordinance amending section 1361.03 of chapter 1361 of the building code, flood damage reduction, order to designate the city engineer as floodplain administrator, and ask for a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That motion passes 3-0. Next on the agenda is, 1 second, let me get this switched over. Two PDC cases, PDC case number 23-23619, KG Real Estate, Investments Westside LLC, and PDC case 23-23804, KG Real Estate. And I assume we can cover both these together.
If that's your pleasure, Mr. Chairman, they're actually two separate properties. They're owned by KG, Ken Ganley Real Estate. So this is the Ken Ganley Hyundai dealership.
Right.
and then also the Ken Ganley Volkswagen have separate applications. Will be the car dealership industry writ large is going through a branding refresh across all of our brands that we have here in the city. So we'll be seeing more of these. I'll speak to both of them and answer questions of both of them. They're fairly vanilla. 23619, the Hyundai dealership, deals with an overhang that encroached further into the right of way, requiring them to modify their variance that they already had, which tripped them into the city council review process, which lands us here. The last page of the submittal from Janata and Herner shows you what the brand looks like. It's a really clean kind of earth tones and glass building. Other than that, it's a pretty vanilla facade kind of strip and replace and update the brand image on that one. So the second case is Ganley VW, and that deals with a cut-through road to cross over Lorraine Road. Ken Ganley owns both properties on both sides of the road, and there's about 50 to 60 trips a day back and forth, shuttling cars from their service center back over to their main facility. Having this cut-through road would allow them to not make a left out of Lorraine Road and a left back into a facility that's right next door. In speaking with our engineer, that's eliminating those two left-hand turns on Lorraine Road just makes it much safer. And so we were in support of this as a staff. Both of these passed BZA and Planning Commission unanimously. On the Volkswagen project, the owners agreed at the request of the Planning and Design Commission to have a limited access gate put up, so it's not a cut through at the Root Road entrance of the main business, and so they were very amenable to that. Otherwise, both of these are pretty straightforward. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, yeah, and thanks, Mr. Upton. We'll talk first on the side. Are there any questions from council related to that one, 23-23619? Or questions from committee or council? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to make a motion to recommend to all council PDC case number favorably recommend to all council PDC case number 23-23619 and ask for a second.
Second.
Aye. Okay.
Second.
Angela, did you have an aye? No, did you have an aye? Voted. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can you give?
Said aye, did you not? Aye.
Okay, thanks. That motion passes 3-0. And then next, moving on to PDC case 23. Sorry, this is slow for all of us today. 23-23804. Is there any questions from council on this, our committee on this one? Okay, any from committee first?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Glassburn has his hand raised.
I see that. I was just making sure I didn't have any from committee. Mr. Glassburn, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I won't belabor this. I know we're all having technical fun tonight. We've had this property come to us many times before, and I don't oppose the additional cut through. I'm just curious as to why this is now part of it and hasn't been part of our previous iterations when we've approved several different changes to this property for Ganley. Is there a reason why we didn't do this before?
I can only speak to the time that I've been in the building, so this is the first time I saw this. I know that the law director and I had some discussions about previous submittals and whether or not this was included in previous submittals. And in reviewing all the records and minutes, this particular part, this cut through lane, was not part of the final development plan that had been contemplated or submitted to council in the past. But we, as part of our research and kind of doing our due diligence, we did review all of those, and it just, for whatever reason, had not made it to this juncture of the review process in previous iterations with this particular property.
Ms. Williamson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the one over by Root Road, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, and then this cut through would go over across Root Road into Ganley's other facility?
Their service facility, yes, the one that's right next door.
So I can tell you that there were a number of residents that were up in arms over that because of the potential safety risk. And I know that, you know, there's issues with the, you know, with the staff taking the vehicles across Lorraine Road and trying to pull in over there. But I know that, you know, there've been a number of speeders as on all of our streets, but I know that there were safety concerns by those residents of having a cut through. I don't know if any of them showed up to the meetings, but
There was one resident that was directly adjacent to the property that did show up. His points were taken under consideration by Planning Commission as well as the Board of BZBA. And in an effort to kind of mitigate that speeding and that cut through, we required that
require what? I'm sorry, I missed that part.
An open and closed gate and a sign that says private drive for employee use only to cut down on that issue.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I would say, I know we've had a couple of these in the past. For Silverdale, for instance, with the RVs. Now that was more of a concern with lighting and traffic coming out across from a resident. In this case, it's basically a residential street entry and exit point, but it's directly across commercial to commercial, right? So in that case, there's not a direct residential impact from exiting on there. And I think we have cases of that all over the city where there's an entry point on the residential street. And I do think that's good that they have a gate to mitigate that during off hours. I know there's some other places where they've actually parked cars across the entryway off hours, trying to reduce people from trying to maneuver around lights and intersection traffic. Any other questions from council, Mr. Glassberg? I know I didn't allow you any rebuttal. Did you have anything else regarding that question?
No, it's an unfortunate situation that they have to go back and forth across the residential street, but going across Lorraine is a bigger hazard. So
agreed.
It's the lesser evil.
Mr. Lambert? Ms. Gilchrist has a question.
Go ahead, Ms. Gilchrist.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to know, is this limited access gate going to be on both sides of the road? Or how does that work?
Go ahead, Mr. Upton. You're muted.
I could scratch that off our bingo card. You think 3 years into virtual meetings, I'd figure out how to unmute myself. No, that is it. There is, I'm sorry, my computer's running slow. There is an existing curb cut across the way, so it would only apply to the curb cut that's as proposed. So they're not requesting an additional curb cut. The curb cut's already there across the street.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Scarlett, do you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I might have missed it, but is the two driveways will be parallel where they'll go straight across? There won't be any jig jog or anything?
No,
when they
no jig jog, nothing like that. It's going to be a straight shot across, where there's not going to be kind of like any type of wonky left, right, depending on where you're going. It's just going to be a straight shot across.
Thank you.
Mr. Broussard, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question. Will there be any signage installed indicating that, I don't know what type of signage, just perhaps to inform motorists who are accustomed to no curb cut there, all of a sudden there's going to be some traffic in and out between those curb cuts. Perhaps we should think about some signage leading up to that.
That wasn't included as part of the proposal, but I can certainly get with our engineer to figure out if there's a warrant there for a signage or maybe a temporary sign for a period of 60 or 90 days until folks kind of get used to that being there. But that's a great suggestion, and I'll get with Mr. Filarski offline to see if there's something we could put in the right of way for at least a temporary basis.
Yeah, do we have to, Mr. Groh, do we have to make that proposal here to get that as part of the recommendation? Because Mr. Broussard, I agree with you. I don't know if it needs to be permanent, but like a short-term request. Does that need to be part of the amendment?
Mr. Upton, did you want to finish saying something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sure you were probably going to go there, Director Garreau, but we can certainly take that on as the city. I don't know as though that's something we could require Ganley to install a sign on the right of way, but I may be speaking out of school.
Right. Typically, the city would be the one in charge of that. If it's going to be within the right of way, the city would be the one responsible for placing that signage. And it's not a permanent part of the development plan approval. Is that what I'm understanding? It's not intended to be there forever.
Mr. Broussard, I mean, that's not what you're recommending here, is it?
No, I'm not.
Yeah. So
I mean,
I think it's more.
Something we can handle. It's probably something we can handle administratively. If it's on the city property, if it's on the city in the right of way, we can handle it. If it's on the private property, then it would be something you'd want to mention in the approval process. But it's also temporary. I don't think it's not like it's a permanent part of the plan development process. It's temporary, right? As you indicated.
I think so, but I think we all agree that it can be a little confusing, and especially on that road where we've heard a lot of residents out, the dealership traffic and confusion around it. Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I apologize. I'm having a lot of technical difficulties this evening. I did have a question. Is this going to be far enough back from Lorraine? This curb cut, just for oncoming traffic that's coming onto route, just so they're not hitting people.
I would ask that Jeff speak to that because he did conduct a review and that was part of his analysis.
Yes, it does meet our requirements for driveway to intersection distance, so it is far enough back.
Is it going to match their back driveway? The drive in the back of the property?
Yes, that's
assuming that's where it's going to be. And are they taking out any trees to make a plan?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Questions from council? Ms. Kopfer, you have a comment? Go ahead.
I do. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't going to be another drive across Ranch View because there's the Ken Ganley Subaru and Volkswagen, and then on the other side of Ranch View is Kenganley Honda. So there's the only thing being considered is between the road one.
That's correct. We're only considering the road access on this application.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other questions from council or committee, I'd like to make a motion to favorably recommend PDC case 23-23804 and ask for a second.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0, and I will conclude the Building Zone Development Committee meeting at 7:19 p.m.
Yeah, I'm ready whenever you are.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to call the Public Parks Building and Recreation Committee meeting to order at 7:19 p.m. Present are committee members Heeman, Limper, and Scarl. All of council president, the mayor, the law director, finance director, HR director, economic director, safety director, service director, recreation director, city engineer, and the special assistant to the mayor. On our agenda is our two items. The first is 2023-79, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an option and ground lease agreement with Tower Co. 2013 LLC to provide for a monopole cellular tower located at North Olmsted Park, and further authorizing the mayor to execute all contract documents and declaring an emergency. The other item is 2023-80, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a fourth amendment of an option and ground lease agreement with Tower Co. 2013 LLC to provide for an extension of the lease term and monopole cellular tower located at North Olmsted Recreation Center in consideration of advanced payment of rent, and further authorizing the mayor to execute all contract documents and declaring an emergency. Mayor, I believe that Director Pinchuk or Director Upton will speak to these. Either is fine, and we can start with 2023-79.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you just mentioned, Director Upton and I will tag team both of these issues. This resolution, 2023-79 for Tower Co. in North Olmsted Park, has been a discussion with the administration with Tower Co. for the last many months about possibly putting a cell tower into the park at North Olmsted Park to help generate funds to fund the North Olmsted Community Park renovation. As part of this resolution, the terms would be the buyout of the ground lease, which would generate $400,000, as well as keeping the co-locators or the subleases on the tower at a monthly annual rate of $900 per month per sub-collator coming into the city. So with the combination of the two, they're both separate, but we'll tackle one at a time, and we'll talk about the park. This again would help fund the renovation of North Olmsted Park as part of the master plan. The latest one was by Benke & Associates in 2020. Max, do you want to go over some of the numbers, please?
Yes, thank you. And as Director Pinchuk had alluded to, I was in preparing this evening. We've been working on this since September, going back and forth with Tower Co. At the direction and under the guidance that our Director of Law provided. We had an outside consultant to kind of help advise as to whether the terms and conditions were consistent with industry standards. And until we received that indication, we weren't comfortable putting this legislation before you. In understanding real estate development, these towers are like a multi-tenant building, if you will. They build the tower, and then each of the, whether it's AT&T, T-Mobile, or Verizon, they are the tenants, right? And so we get $900 per tenant every month. And then each year over the 40-year period of that lease, it inflates 2% year over year. And it's a compounding inflation of 2%. And so really what we're doing here is monetizing the ground lease, preserving existing cash flows, and completing a capital project without, asking for additional taxpayer dollars. So the co-locators, if there's only one co-locator tenant on this particular tower, it would be worth over that period of time an additional $652,000 of revenue to the city, on top of the $400,000 that we're receiving to buy out the lease of the ground itself. And so that is in keeping, like I said, with industry standard for communities that seek to monetize these ground leases. And our objective was always to preserve existing cash flow and provide capital to make the master plan come to life.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, Madam Chair, if I could just jump in. So 2023-80 is the basis of the agreement. That was the template used for -79 at the beginning, because that lease was established in 2018 for the Recreation Center cell tower. And so what we are asking for in that resolution is, again, the buyout of the ground lease for $400,000 and maintaining our sublease or collators that are additionally on that tower currently. So by doing both of these projects, or both of these resolutions, I should say, the money that would generate would be $800,000 with an additional $150,000 Senator Dolan grant that we received, and the $150,000 ARPA matching funds that are in the budget, totaling $1.1 million to go towards the North Olmsted Park Master Plan renovation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just as a kind of further explanation, we have had this cell tower at the Recreation Center for several years now. The difference is that it wasn't paid for up front. So I think our directors here and the administration has done an excellent job in bringing us cash up front rather than, just sort of little bits and pieces over increments of time. It allows us then to cobble the funds together to complete our park and our baseball diamonds and those things that we have wanted to do for a very long time. So the park cell phone tower is really the same thing that we have at the Recreation Center. The beauty of this is that it can hold 4 subleases. So, well, actually 1 lease and 3 subleases. So it could be a total of 4 revenue streams per tower, so long as the folks, with the lease go out and seek that revenue, we are entitled to that revenue. And that revenue would be $800 a month at the rec center, and then the park would be $900 per month, and would increase incrementally in 2% increments on an annual basis. So while we're getting the 400 and 400 for each tower up front now, that amount of income can be increased if we have additional vendors, I'll call them for lack of a better word. So if there are any questions and let me back up and say that the Recreation Center is being reworked at this time so that it will be in line with the park, so that they will be on different time schedules of when they are kind of sort of expiring and being renewed. That's the kind of crux of that. So if there are any questions from committee, Mr. Limpert, please.
Thank you, Ms. Heeman. Can you just clarify, so at Clegg Road, we have a cell tower there, and the reception and access that people have there, I've heard a lot of complaints about not being able to access that. Is there any concern that like the immediate vicinity of the cell tower, that reception gets blocked, or do we have any idea why Clegg Road's reception is so poor when it has a cell a cell tower there. And the reason I'm asking this is if we have concerns about connectivity there at the park, we have a lot of big time events there and a lot of people that need cellular service. So just trying to understand what the impacts of a cell tower is to that reception in the area, the immediate area.
Director Upton, can you answer that one?
I don't have the foggiest clue how the technology works. But I do know that the developer, so TowerCo's the developer, right? They approached us because they have a tenant, in this case, it's T-Mobile, I believe that's in the documents, that has a large need in that area. So the way in which the developer identified a place that fit with the carrier's need, I believe that the carrier has done their due diligence and believes that this particular tower in this location will fill a gap in their service within this particular part of the community. I know, I don't know if it was 3G, 4G, but I think at one point in time, I don't even know what G we're on now, 5, 6, 7, or whatever it is, but at one point in time, if you were too close to a cell phone tower, that was almost as bad as not having one, right? Because there was like a interference or whatever the case may be. I'm not a technologist and I don't pretend to know, but that's my uneducated guess as to what's going on. Hopefully that helped.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I guess that's just my only concern. We get a little bit more clarification from the vendor, just because it's going to be at our most widely used park from an access perspective with the number of events we have there. I just like to get a better understanding of how that's mitigated now than, or why Clay Park is different, I guess.
We have to, if I can stop you right there. So Director Upton, if you could please find us, get us the information, please, as to who subscribes to that tower at Clegg. Meaning, like, for example, at the park, it's Dish Network, right? It's not a cell phone. So whoever they choose to have at that tower is who's got the access, right? And so maybe, Mr. Limpert, the thing to do is we find out like who's on the tower at Clegg, and then perhaps we need to have them add something else. Because if this is T-Mobile coming to the park, well, that's not going to obviously affect all of the other like cell phone carriers, right? So I think that that's maybe what we have to find out. But it's a good point, because obviously, you know, when you're out and there's an emergency, that is the whole point of cell phones and instant access. So if we could find out more about the Clegg Tower and who subscribes to having access to it, that would be helpful.
That'd be great. Thank you, Madam Chair. And I got another question. I don't know if anybody else in the committee has one. For the park, where are we? Do we have an idea where that would go?
Yes, Councilman. So the locations that we are thinking of are north of the senior center by the garbage disposal area currently in the parking lot, hidden between the trees, or right along in that same area to the east of the volleyball court on the north side of the drive, if that makes sense. There's a vacant area that, if you look on Google Maps, it's an outdated photo that shows a bunch of trees, but some of those trees are gone, and that's an area of space that will not impact any activities or programs or even the renovation process. Either one of those locations would work. And learning from our discussions with TowerCo, the new cell towers are much more streamlined than the old ones. So they will hide right into the tree lines as, you know, when the trees are in full bloom.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Are there any other questions from committee? Questions from council? Mr. Scarl, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is for Director Pinchek. Do you know the dimensions of the tower, the height?
I want to say, Councilman Scarl, I want to say is it 60 feet max? Was that what you were talking?
Yeah, it's not a very large tower. It's not what, you know, the old towers that you're used to. And in fact, there's a tower very similar to this in Berea that's standing right next to baseball diamond lights. It's the exact same height. It's not going to be a monstrosity in the middle of the park.
So very similar to a baseball light standard.
Okay, thank you. So my question would be that if we put it amongst trees, we're not going to put it where the trees are going to be bigger than this and block any kind of
No,
reception,
sir.
correct?
No, sir.
Well, what TowerCo has told us is the new technology is not a line of sight technology. It's not, you don't need a line of sight to the tower to get the reception any longer.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Director, is it a finance question?
No, it's just that in the ordinance, it says 140 feet.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
all I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Any more questions from council? Okay, if there are no more questions, I'd like to make a motion to recommend to all of council 2023-79 and 2023-80 and ask for a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Okay.
Aye.
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 All right, that motion passes 3-0 and the meeting is concluded at 7:34. Thank you.
Okay, the Finance Committee starts at 7:34. Present are all of council, the mayor, and all of our directors. Only item on the agenda is 2023-76 concerning stop loss insurance, one of our annual activities. Director Kidd or someone from the administration could speak to that. Is there someone who could?
Director Kidd can speak to it. It looks like she might be having audio issues.
Okay.
Is she still muted? It shows her as being muted still. There we go. Still nothing.
Mr. Chairman, we're going to see if she can just come down into my office and speak directly to council from here.
She could come over here too.
Thank you.
Either would be fine.
Okay, I am so sorry. I was trying to speak, but it was not working. This is standard legislation that comes before council every year. It allows our healthcare broker to solicit proposals for stop loss insurance. These are the fixed costs on our plan. Currently, we are set at specific stop loss at 100,000 and aggregate at $1 million, which our invoices vary a little bit, but they're usually about $60,000 a month.
Okay. Director, is there anything unusual about the rates this year or anything, again, long-term we need to know about this?
No, and actually our increase for 2023 was only 16%, which our broker is seeing increases as high as 25%. So I thought we did pretty well.
Okay. Are there questions from committee?
It's sad when you gotta be excited about 16%, isn't it?
I know. That's the market though.
Okay. Are there questions from council? Seeing none, I will move to favorably recommend 2023-76 and ask for a second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Limpert. All those in favor, aye.
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 That is 3-0, and we conclude at 7:38.
Thank you, B.
Phone on the chair. I just tried to turn it down.
I know, I don't know why it wasn't working when you talk.
Whose cell phone is it?
Okay, if everyone's ready, I'd like to call the Environmental Control Committee to order on June 27th, 2023, virtually at 7:38 p.m. On the agenda, present are committee members Scarl, Gilchrist, Madden, the rest of council, the mayor, law director, finance director, HR director, economic development director, safety director, service director, recreation director, special assistant to the mayor, city engineer. On the agenda tonight is resolution 2023-81, introduced by Mayor Jones, a resolution authorizing the Director of Economic and Community Development to advertise for bids for the award of a contract to provide construction services for the Clegg Road Force Main Replacement Project, as detailed in specifications on file, and authorizing the mayor, following approval by the Board of Control, to enter into a contract for the same with the lowest and best bidder. Madam Mayor, who will be speaking on behalf of your administration tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our city engineer will be speaking this evening.
Thank you. Go ahead there, Mr. Filarski.
Thank you. So this project is being done in conjunction with the Clegg Road resurfacing project. The strategy here is the force main, which is over 60 years old, needs to be replaced. And we'd like to do that prior to the resurfacing. So we've been moving forward, developing the plans, specifications for it, and getting the permits from the Ohio EPA to get this project out to bid, to kick it off construction-wise this fall, with the intent to get it done in the first half of 2024. And then the resurfacing project, which is a separate project, would start construction after June of 2024. So that's the intent of this legislation, to get some numbers, bid numbers on this project, and if financing is available, to award it through Board of Control.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure at this time, do you know the length of this main project? How long this is going to be? Not date-wise, the pipe itself, how far it's going to be?
Yes, it runs from Lorraine Road north to LeBurn Pump Station. It's about 4,400 feet long, and it is a 16-inch diameter pipe.
And will it be going on top of the old, or ripping out the old and going and replace where the old is?
No, we did a study to figure out where it could be placed, because there's a lot of underground utilities there. We're actually placing it on the east side of the road, basically either in the tree lawns or under the sidewalks, in order to fit it between all the utilities that are already there. The existing main will then be abandoned in place. And that runs basically under the southbound lanes.
Okay, so we'll just leave that there. We won't even dig that up.
That's correct.
Thank you. That's all I have. Is there any questions from committee?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Director.
Thank you. I just want to remind City Council that under Mayor's leadership, Jeff and I have been working diligently, and so long as our United States Congress passes a budget on time this year, this project will be awarded a $2 million earmark from the federal government, which will pay for about I think it's about 95% of the total project's cost will be paid for through a federal earmark. And so we're really grateful to our congressional representation as well as Senator Brown's office for advocating for this funding for us. And the one other thing I will add is that we really wanted to approach Clegg Road with a dig one time mentality, meaning that we would do the underground infrastructure, then do the top of the road and minimize the disturbance to the business community and our residents so that it's all done once and we're not coming back a couple of years later to do another project and disturb the residents again. So that's all I would add, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And that sounds really good with the federal money. Hope that comes to light. Is there any other questions from committee before I open it up to council? Any questions from council? Okay. See no further questions. I would like to favorably recommend resolution 2023-81 and ask for a second. Second, Ms. Gilchrist.
Second, sorry, I was having problems.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 That motion passes 3-0. And with no other further items on the agenda, this Environmental Control Committee meeting is concluded at 7:45. Thank you.
See you guys in August.